My name is Dane Mormon with Legacy Woodworking Machinery. Today I'm going to show you how to use one of the most valuable tools Legacy has to offer for our ornamental mills. The Legacy Design Kit gives you the following advantages. Number one, it will give you a starting point. Number two, you won't waste wood. Number three, you won't waste money on router bits you will not use. Number four, we can design our parts in full scale. Number five, you will know where to make each cut and which router bit to use. Let's get started and let me show you the components of the design kit. You will get a 12 by 39 inch pad with 50 sheets. It's laid out just like the machine with a center line, a Y or Z axis, and an X axis. These numbers correspond with the measuring tapes on the machine. It also comes with a 14 by 14 inch pad that's laid out for an in view or a cross section of your part. You'll also get 3 acrylic templates with 107 different router bit profiles. It'll come with a packet of information with a key of router bits and its numbers. And in the back are some samples and a DVD. Before we came out with the design kit, you were pretty much on your own. You put the part in the machine, start cutting, and see what you end up with. It's a pretty difficult way to design a part. The design kit gives us a starting point. I'm going to design a basic table leg 28 inches long. This is going to be my headstock side. If I'm standing in front of the machine, the headstock is to my right. The measuring tapes read from 0 and go to the tailstock. The small end, or the foot of the table leg, will be towards my headstock. Anytime you have a small diameter towards the headstock, it's a good idea to burn 2 inches so you don't run your router bit into the metal parts of the headstock. So I'm going to start my part at 2 inches, and then we're going to end at 30, giving me a 28 inch table leg. Now on your 3 acrylic templates, be sure to peel off the plastic off of both sides so you can see through it clearly. The diameter of my stock will be 3 inches. So off a center line, I came off 1.5 inches, drew my line, and 1.5 inches off this side. Now you can use your template as a straight edge. Now the first 4 inches of my part will be straight. I kind of like that profile right there, so I think for my first cut, I'm going to use that profile. Anything I cut on this side, I've got to have a mirror image on the other side. I'm going to taper this part from 3 inches down to 1.5 inches. I'm going to put a bead down at this end, and I think I like that router bit right there. Now remember, anything you draw on this side must be mirror image on this other side. Now my taper will end at this point and this point, making 1.5 inches diameter. Now I'm going to use a straight edge to draw a taper. Now we can go ahead and erase these lines because they won't be here. Now if I don't like this design, I can simply erase it and choose another router bit profile. Looking at the router bit key, I can see that I used bit number 3953. Now the profile I used here is bit number 3934. After drawing our part, now let's see what this tells us. The diameter of our part is 3 inches. The center of our first cut will be at 24.5 inches with bit number 3953. We will taper down to 1.5 inches. Now the centers of these two cuts are 3.5 and 2.5 inches with bit number 3934. Now the design kit not only tells us the position of the router bit, but it also tells us how deep to go. Remember, we started off with a part at 3 inches diameter. Now you can see here that we need to plunge our router bit down 1 inch to make these two cuts. The Legacy Design Kit allows us to design our parts before even turning the machine on. That will save you money by not wasting wood and buying router bits that you will never use. We can design our parts in full scale so we will know exactly what the part looks like. Finally, we can take our drawing and know which router bit to use and the correct position and depth of each cut. Now let me show you a couple other profiles to give you some more ideas. This is a finial for the top of a newel post. As you can see here, every detail of this profile was made up of 3 router bits. The design kit will tell us the diameter, the position, and the depth of each cut. In this sample, the bead and the tenon were created by router bits. This section is just a straight taper by simply adjusting your bed. The design kit gives us the large diameter, the small diameter, and the length of the taper. So refer to your taper chart to know exactly how far to adjust your bed. In this section, it requires a template because of the curve, and you can create your template right from this drawing. As you've learned, by laying out our part on the design kit, we know the diameter, the correct position of the router bit, and how deep to plunge. We've also learned how to calculate the adjustment of the bed for tapers, and in this section, how to build a template for curve or contour patterns. Now let me show you 2 other reasons for using the design kit. First, you can check your clearances. If you plunge too deep with a large core box bit, you will cut the shoulders off of the 2 beads. The design kit helps you determine the proper plunge depth before you make the cut. Second, you can identify design problems. In this example, we want to have the bead right up against a square shoulder. Here is the center line of the router bit. As you can see, the router bit cuts on both sides of the center line, removing the corner of the shoulder. In this example, we would either need to modify the design or make 2 separate parts and join them together with a round Mortison tenon. In my next class, I'll teach you how to design spindles with a twist, like the rope molding and the barley twist.
Today we'll be working with the design kit, and we'll focus on laying out spirals. Out of the 3 templates, this one right here has most of the router bits that we would use to cut spirals. These are the rope, these are the barley twist, here's just a large roundover, point cutting roundovers, and the classic spiral. The packet here, of course, has each of the router bits numbers for the corresponding router bits. We're going to start off with something very basic and simple. We'll do a single start barley twist. This is cut like the threads of a screw, just one single pass and you're done. We'll start off with a design that is 2 inches in diameter. So that's 1 inch off the center line on each side. With a Barley twist, it's a 1-to-1 ratio. Whatever the diameter of the stock is, in this case 2 inches, you use the same diameter router bit. So we'll use the 2-inch diameter Barley twist router bit and simply trace that level with this surface. Now if you were going to just turn it round, then it would cut the exact same profile straight across like this. However, we are going to have a spiral, so instead of being straight across this way, it's going to travel at an angle. Keep in mind that when you set up the gears to cut a spiral, it doesn't matter what the diameter of the stock is, you set it up the same. The only reason that we say a 2-inch router bit with a 2-inch diameter stock is so that the proportions are correct. Again, you can refer to that with your training DVDs or online training. We'll get into that a little bit more later. Now here is the router bit. Again, it's 2 inches in diameter, like so. So if you take that cutter now and simply move it down 2 inches or the width of the router bit and make another cut here, it's going to form that bead, which is exactly what we want. Keep in mind, if the router bit starts here and it's going to come across, and then on the back side it's going to come back and end up at that point. This is a single start. So this cut has to be centered right in between. And then of course it would cut right next to it the same way all the way down the piece. And it would repeat that same pattern on the opposite side. So the router bit starts at this point and it travels 2 inches before it comes back to this point. So the pitch on this particular part is 2 inches. It's going to make a cut across here, and then across at this point. And that's what your Barley twist is going to look like. One of the advantages of using a design kit to lay out your spirals is that you can see if the proportions are correct before you cut it into the wood. Let's take a close-up look at these two pieces here. On these two samples, we use exactly the same router bit and the same pitch. So the spiral process is identical regardless of the diameter of the stock. What will change is the proportions. If you look at this one, where the diameter of the bit is the same as the diameter of the stock, this looks very natural. This is what you're used to seeing. On this one, the stock is 4 inches in diameter instead of 2. Notice that the spiral still works exactly the same, but we have a much tighter spiral, and these beads appear to be too small for this sample. We'll start off with a design that is 2 inches in diameter. So that's 1 inch off the center line on each side. With a Barley twist, it's a 1-to-1 ratio. Whatever the diameter of the stock is, in this case 2 inches, you use the same diameter router bit. So we'll use the 2-inch diameter Barley twist router bit and simply trace that level with this surface. Now if you were going to just turn it round, then it would cut the exact same profile straight across like this. However, we are going to have a spiral, so instead of being straight across this way, it's going to travel at an angle. Keep in mind that when you set up the gears to cut a spiral, it doesn't matter what the diameter of the stock is, you set it up the same. The only reason that we say a 2-inch router bit with a 2-inch diameter stock is so that the proportions are correct. Again, you can refer to that with your training DVDs or online training. We'll get into that a little bit more later. Now here is the router bit. Again, it's 2 inches in diameter, like so. So if you take that cutter now and simply move it down 2 inches, or the width of the router bit, and make another cut here, it's going to form that bead, which is exactly what we want. Keep in mind, if the router bit starts here, and it's going to come across, and then on the back side it's going to come back and end up at that point. This is a single start. So this cut has to be centered right in between. And then, of course, it would cut right next to it the same way, all the way down the piece. And it would repeat that same pattern on the opposite side. So the router bit starts at this point, and it travels 2 inches before it comes back to this point. So the pitch on this particular part is 2 inches. It's going to make a cut across here, and then across at this point. And that's what your barley twist is going to look like. The single start barley twist is the most fundamental basic cut you can make when making spirals. All you do is put the router bit in there and set the pitch, and one cut from end to end, and it's finished. We'll do something a little bit more challenging on this next part. We'll make it a 2-start barley twist. On this part, the stock is 3 inches in diameter, 1.5 inches off the center line on each side. I used a 2.5-inch diameter barley twist cutter. So the router bit cuts from here to here. Now, of course, to form that bead, we're still going to have another cut right here. However, the router bit will start at this point and cut, and it's going to skip one bead, which is the second start, and it's going to end up here. So the router bit travel will be from this point and then back on the other side to this point. There's your pitch. Now let's take a look and see what the design kit is telling us about this part. Number one, the profile, of course, is formed by the router bit, and so it's going to give us a nice round bead at this point. We chose a slightly smaller diameter router bit than the diameter of the stock, and they gave us nice proportions. You can experiment with several different cutters and see which one you like the best. The next thing we want to look at is, you'll notice whenever we have 2 starts or 4 starts, an even number of starts, the router bit's going to start right here, it's going to come to this point and then back up, and the pitch will be from this point to this point. Okay? So these cuts are directly straight across from each other. Whereas on an odd number of starts, such as 1, 3, or 5, these cuts will not be lined up directly across. You can see the center of this cut is lined up with the top of the bead. Same thing here, center of this cut with the top of the bead. So they stagger. Again, on even numbers, the cuts will be directly across from each other. On odd numbers, they will stagger. Now let's take a look at the rope molding and see how it's going to work. With all spirals, there are 4 variables. The first one is the shape and the diameter of the router bit itself. The second one is the number of starts, and in this sample, there are 2. The third variable is the pitch, and the fourth variable is the diameter of the stock. This piece here is 1 inch in diameter, this one is 2, and this one is 3. The router bits are all exactly the same. The number of starts are the same. In this case, it's 2. And the pitch is exactly the same. The pitch on this part is 2 inches, the same on this one. But you see, as the diameter of the stock increases, it dramatically changes the look of the spiral. Now let's take a look at this one here. Okay, this one has a 1 inch diameter, a 2 inch diameter, and a 3 inch diameter. Those are the same. We changed the shape of the router bit, rather the size of the router bit. This is an 1.5 inch cutter. It's still 2 starts. And so you can see the difference in the 3 cuts. Now when I look at this one, this is starting to get a little too long and doesn't look right. This one is still a little too tight, and this one here obviously is still too tight. Now if we look at this third sample, the diameter of the stock is still 1 inch, 2 inch, and 3 inches, exactly the same. We changed to a 2 inch diameter router bit, and so the pitch also changed to 4 inches. Now on this one, again, that is getting too long and doesn't look correct. This one looks really nice. I like these proportions a lot. This one's still a little bit too tight, so we would need to increase the router bit to make this look correct. You can see this one looks correct here. This one looks correct here. Let me show you how to vary the design to keep the proportions consistent regardless of the diameter of the stock. With the 1 inch diameter stock, we determined that the 1 inch cutter looked the best. This is the proportions that we liked. So as we increase the diameter of the stock, we simply increase the diameter of the router bit and, of course, the pitch. So here, from 1 inch to 1 inch, we've gone to 2 inches in diameter, we went to a 2 inch cutter. On the 3 inch diameter stock, we went to a 3 inch cutter. So proportionally, they look the same. Keep in mind, what we're showing you here is a very traditional design in the rope. Now you may not even like this design. That's one of the nice things about the design kit and the Legacy Ornamental Mill, is you can change any of those variables, the router bit profile, the diameter, the pitch, the number of starts, and you can draw it on paper and see what it's going to look like before you waste any money on router bits or wood and all the time it takes to make several samples. Okay, now let's take a look at a couple of other samples real quickly. On this sample, we have a single start and a 2-start spiral. This router bit here is called the classic spiral. It's very similar to a traditional barley twist, but it has the cove at the bottom and this little detail that gives us a completely different look. The concept is identical, it's just the shape of the router bit that changes. And you can see here on a single start, the cuts are going to be offset or staggered, where on a 2-start, they're going to line up directly across from each other. The 3 examples that we've shown you so far all are forming a bead, like the rope, the barley twist, or the classic spiral. Let's take a look at how to use a router bit that doesn't form a bead, such as a core box, and see the effect that you're going to have on your design. This sample right here started off with the rope molding bit, and you can see it formed a rope design. We then came back with a core box bit, and right on top of the bead we cut a cove, and it's going to spiral across and modify that design to create this pattern here. You may recognize this sample from the hollow spiral technique that we did on a previous class online. Notice that the core box does not need to meet up with each other, so we simply set the spacing for anything that we want. Now let's take a look at this piece here. For this pineapple or diamond effect, we had just a straight cylinder, and then we simply used a core box bit to cut a flute. This could be a V-groove bit. It could even be a rope bit that would give you a pillow diamond effect. We used a core box bit, and we set the pitch. So it started at this point, it comes down here a total of 3 inches, and then travels back 1, 2, 3 inches. So the pitch is a total of 6 inches. So we'll know how to set the machine. The spacing between each cut is 1.5 inches. And we'll cut these cuts 1, 2, 3, 4 in one direction, and then we'll come back and cut the same cuts in the opposite direction. If we lengthen this spiral pitch, these diamonds would become taller and narrower. If we shorten the pitch, they would become short and fat. So you could play with the design of the diamond on paper before you start making your cuts and see what proportions you like here. Same thing over here, we can play with the number of starts and the spacing between each cut to give us the proper dimension or fill that we're looking for. Now let's take a look at how to create transitions for the spiral. Your first option is after you've cut the spiral, you position the same router bit at the end and simply run it around the circumference, and it will terminate the spiral at that point right there. I prefer to use a different shape router bit, and this is one of my favorites. It's the classic spiral cutter. It has this profile, and we run it around the circumference, and then we let the rope just blend into that cut. Obviously, you'll want this cut to be deeper than the rope design so that it doesn't cut through these shoulders. Now, one design problem you may run into is if you want the rope to come up and transition right into a bead as opposed to a cove. You have a couple of options. Number one is, again, you run the router bit around the end right here. It will terminate the spiral and blend that in. If you tried to run the rope right up into the shoulder, the router bit would cut into this bead and ruin it. Another option that you have, if you want to run the rope right into a bead or a shoulder or a transition like this, is that you make these in 2 separate pieces. We would mill the round tenon right on the end of one piece, in this case on the rope, and we would drill a round mortise into the part here and join them together to give you a nice clean shoulder. Well, now you see how useful the design kit is when it comes to laying out your spiral designs. In the next class, we're going to look at a sample that might have flutes or reeds or index cuts, and you'll be able to lay out the width of the flute, the spacing between, and all of those details. We'll be using this pad and show you how to lay out from the end view.